Israel is taking out the enemies of the state in Yemen, in the Gaza Strip, and in Lebanon, and also in Syria, Mati. What a week we had with terminations of all the government of the Houthi terrorist organization in Yemen, in one strike, in one location, when they were listening to a speech or planning to carry out more attacks against Israel. Yeah. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Tell us about who else was assassinated.
It's been quite a week for Israeli forces, both on an intelligence level and operations. We removed 12 people from the Houthi leadership. This is not, by the way, the government of Yemen. This is a terrorist organization.
This is that self-proclaimed terrorist government that took over the internationally recognized
terrorist organization. We removed a lot of their heads, and we'll both literally and figuratively speaking.
All other limbs.
Yeah, and possibly more. And Abu Ubaidah. Abu Ubaidah, we were talking about this before the show. Abu Ubaidah is the propaganda minister for Hamas.
Exactly.
He is the machine of deception that comes out of the Gaza Strip. And this man was removed this week. And several other attempts that have apparently been made in recent weeks. So it's been an amazing season, if you can call it that, of eliminating arch terrorists that have been fighting against Israel and making the lives of, in this case, people in Yemen, ships traveling through the sea, and the people of Israel, making lives miserable for a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly.
These are people that are, it's a very good thing that we send them to meet their God.
Definitely, Mati. And I think what we should focus on is the intelligence level that Israel has been establishing in Yemen. People need to understand, Yemen is very, very far from Israel. It's more than around 2,000 kilometers.
It's like 1,900 kilometers to the closest point.
Yeah.
So that's...
What's that in miles?
1,300 miles, something like that.
Yeah, it's very, very far. And we do not have a border with Yemen. So we did not, up until they started launching attacks against us, had intelligence in this country. Yeah. It was far away. Okay, so they hated Israel, but they weren't a threat to us. But in the past 2 years, after Hamas launched the attack against Israel and the IDF responded, the Houthis in Yemen have been launching UAVs, suicide drones, missiles, ballistic missiles, and any weapon that they can have that reaches us on Israel, including just this week that they fired another ballistic missile in the middle of my recording of Boots on the Ground. I had to take shelter in the tank, an old tank next to me.
Well, you spent so much time recording, it's just a question of time till a missile falls.
Yeah, exactly. That's what my wife told me. She said, yeah, of course he's hiding in the tank. He's always in this tank. It's like, so...
You spent half the day there, so that's not a surprise. Anyway, but to your point, and here's what's been happening here. One, there's been an ongoing war against the terrorist organization that is the Houthis. It's been a multiple-year campaign that has to do with eliminating their damage that they've been causing in the Red Sea. This was done by a coalition force even before the October 7th war started.
Yeah.
And there's been attempts both by humanitarian organizations, U.S. intelligence, Yemeni intelligence, Saudi intelligence, Israeli intelligence to really quiet down the terrorist situation there in the country. And then in the year 2025, there's been a very dramatic sort of uptick in military campaigns and operations against the Houthis. The American Army, or armed forces, I should say, because it was a combination of Navy and Air Force and Army and Marines, whatever, all of them.
All of them have all the tools.
All of them plus the CIA probably in the background. They did a 7-week campaign. Toma, how long was it?
7 weeks.
7-week campaign back in the spring of this year, 2025. Against the Houthis. They attacked thousands of targets in Yemen. They eliminated many of their launchers. They killed some of their operatives, but they were not able to remove their military leadership or their symbolic leadership.
No, they just destroyed the
infrastructure.
Yeah.
And neither did Israel, by the way. Israel also attacked in Yemen, both during that attack. So let's say in the months of March and April.
We were blind over there.
Yeah. Also, again, during the war in the 12-day war against Iran back in June, and we were unable to remove that leadership. And then the news comes out the other day that says we eliminated 12 of their leaders at once. And then the story started at once. And then the story started.
10 aircraft flew over.
Yeah, it's an amazing operation.
Yeah, and let's go over the list of who was terminated. It was the Minister of Agriculture, the Foreign Minister. Tomer, do you have more of the names? It was basically
I have a name.
all the government
Everybody.
leadership, except for the
Symbolic leader.
for the defense minister that was wounded, right?
No, chief of
and
staff.
then also
Chief of staff.
the
Chief of staff.
Chief of staff got
Oh.
wounded.
okay, and also the head of the Houthis, Abdel Fattah al-Houthi,
No, Abdel Malik al-Houthi.
Abdel Malik al-Houthi.
But he wasn't there.
By the way, all of them end their name with Houthi. I
Yeah.
guess it's like an honorary.
Well, it's also a tribal affiliation, but
Yeah.
it's also a
Yeah.
symbolic name.
But the thing is that, from what we're hearing, was the worst government ever.
No, they're not a government.
They are.
They were not elected. Let's
by the
make
way,
it clear.
Just a comment. This is where you see media deception come to play, because a lot of the headlines around the world were Israel eliminates government, or it's
Government of Yemen.
a government of Yemen, Prime Minister of Yemen. So this man is not the Prime Minister of Yemen. He's the head of a terrorist organization.
Exactly.
He's a person that sends children to war. He's a person that kills his own countrymen and aid workers that come into the country. There is a government in Yemen. These are not the people.
Sadly, the government in Yemen is exiled from the capital of Yemen and
Yeah.
is residing somewhere
southern part
next
of the
to
country.
the Saudi Arabia border
Yeah.
under the protection of the Saudis. And what this so-called terror government that took over the country did for the people in Yemen in the past 2 years was basically turning all the schools that were teaching them English into terror facilities, incitement locations to recruit new terrorists for this terrorist organization. Thank you, Alon, by the way. Don't duck. We can put it on a widescreen and show you. Well, Alon is bringing us some caffeine and some chocolate because
I'm gonna take a tax from you.
we need to stay awake. And see, Mati is stealing my chocolate again. So yeah,
Anyway.
so they did only bad things, and it's very similar to what's happening in the Gaza Strip.
Wait,
Hamas in Gaza.
I want to tell people you say bad things. Let's delay on that.
Okay,
What does that mean?
what does that mean? It's not like
That's mean that our viewers need to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. You won't tell them why they need to do that?
I just took a chocolate. So
Because Tomer tells us to. That's no, but in reality, if you're watching this at home, there's a reason we ask you to like, share, and subscribe. Because the whole reason we do this, and the whole reason we put energy into creating this content, is because we want people to know what the truth is of what happens here in Israel, on the ground in the Middle East. And the only way we know how to do that is with your help at home. There is no other way. Exactly. We grow only organically. We're not spending money on commercials. We're not trying to reach people with money. We're not buying likes or subscriptions. It's only by people that share this content and bring us to more people. We've done you guys have done an amazing job of helping us grow. All we've done is be here. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. So let's go back to what's bad.
What is bad?
What's
So,
bad?
Let's talk first, because people hear these things and they say, well, obviously you don't like them. You're Israelis. So, no. Even if I didn't live in the Middle East, these are the bad guys. They destroyed the economy of their country. So they cut the GDP per capita by half. And it wasn't good to begin with. They destroyed the agriculture in the country. They destroyed trade in the country. They killed aid workers. This is last year, to prevent them from bringing aid into the country, because they wanted, similar to Hamas, to have a chokehold on the economy of the country. And that's why they intentionally murdered aid workers that were coming into Yemen with aid, so they would stop coming and there would be a food shortage in the country. And literally there is starvation. By the way, unlike Gaza, there really has been starvation taking place in Yemen.
For many, many years now.
Yeah.
Nobody's talking about it.
And it gets worse.
Yeah.
That's just internal. So they overthrew the government, they impoverished the people, they killed the people, they destroyed the economy, they destroyed the education system, they are murdering their people actively. And then they start, this is just internally. Let's talk about what they do externally. They disrupt global trade to the point where they, in a day, literally, back in 2024, several times they caused the global economy to shrink overnight because they disrupted global trade of oil, global trade of dry goods. People had to start moving things instead of on ships, through trucks, through Saudi and Jordan, and then to ports in Israel.
Yeah, which costs a lot more money.
Which doesn't make
takes
any
more
financial
time,
sense. Yeah.
And also it's a very, very expensive thing in terms of insurance of the ships that
Yes.
do want to sail in that area.
So someone was sending a car
Such
from...
great guys.
Yeah, such good people. So these people, and I want to just frame the vocabulary. They're not freedom fighters. They're not the elected government of Yemen. They are terrorists that are a proxy force of the Iranians. They're funded and equipped by the Iranians, and they wouldn't be able to fight this war without Iranian support, and they cause a ton of damage.
You know what they did a moment after the elimination of they leadership?
They marched in the streets.
No, they went to the UN facilities and kidnapped
Oh, I
all
saw
the
that. Yeah,
workers.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
And took them under-
they claimed that the United Nations workers are working
With
on behalf of the Israelis and the United States of America. So they kidnapped the UN workers that are there to try and help them.
That's how we know that they don't listen to world news.
No, they don't listen to TBN Israel.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if you know anything about the UN, that's not likely.
No,
Anyway.
definitely. Listen, it's very, very similar to what's happening in the Gaza Strip. So there is a government that is fully manned and controlled ideologically, by manpower, physically, by terrorists, by a terrorist organization, and is using the governmental institutions in order to feed into its agendas of hatred, of terrorism, of war. Now, it's also against Israel, same as Hamas in the Gaza Strip. The Houthis in Yemen are shouting death to Israel in the memorial ceremonies of these that were perished just now.
Yeah. They're clearly very, very focused on destroying their country.
That's
There is no other agenda there.
But I think you can see that in countries that are suffering financially, economically, and that the people are poor under the regimes of terrorism, they need to find something to unite the people to hate other than themselves, other than the regime. Then they focus on Israel. That's what we see that Iran is doing now when they are at a very, very tough situation financially with droughts, with no water, no electricity. But instead of trying to invest in the future of the people, they invest in military technologies and in threats against Israel and the United States of America.
Well, also action. They're not just empty threats. They've been
They
launching...
proved 3 times already that they can launch attacks against.
Yeah, and by the way, the fact that a missile hit Israel just a few days ago, it wasn't the first missile they launched since this attack. They launched multiple strikes. They just didn't make it to Israel.
The Houthis, you mean?
The Houthis did,
yes,
yeah.
exactly.
No, so they're a very violent organization. They're a destructive organization, both to themselves and others. And what they are also, just to finish sort of framing the picture of who they are, they're the proxy arm of the Iranians, but they're sort of the wild dog proxy.
Exactly.
So unlike Hezbollah, that is much more of a...
Structured.
I'm struggling saying this word, like a more structured and rational player. The Houthis sort of, you know what I mean? Like it's hard to call a terrorist organization rational. But we know this. We spent time with intelligence officers last week, and you hear the reports that came out of the war. People in Hezbollah did a calculation and said, Israel's about to kill all of us. Let's stop fighting.
Yeah, it's not worth it to attack another now.
Yeah. The Iranians say openly, the Houthis don't listen to us. The Houthis say openly, we don't listen to anyone. There's no secret there. They are a very, very radical movement, and they're very violent at their core. And what the Iranians do is they just enable them. They give them the weapons, they give them the time.
But the cool part, Tomer and Mati, is that now Israel has intelligence, but accurate intelligence. Let's break it down.
How?
We were able to pinpoint a secret meeting that included all the leadership of this terrorist organization that were meeting at a secret place in an apartment somewhere in the city, and were able to strike that apartment and terminate them all at once with 10 airplanes without any kind of harm to our forces.
You
amazing,
tell it without a drama. Again, what just happened?
Let me say this as a headline.
I can't do it without the drama.
It need more drama.
In a matter, here's the thing. In a country that 12 months ago we knew nothing about, we didn't know the whereabouts of these people, we didn't know what they were doing, we didn't know the names of all the leadership.
Wow.
In this year, we were able to eliminate all their government within, according to foreign reports and intel that was leaked, within 4 hours of the initial information bit that came in, they were already dead. And that is something unheard of in the intelligence community.
From the moment the airplanes on the ground, people sitting in an office somewhere, I don't know where in Israel, they finding out 4 hours later there is no...
They're gone.
They're gone.
They're gone. And that's amazing. Again,
it's fast.
It shows you, and I can say this. I spent a lot of time last week interviewing several individuals that are in the Israeli intelligence organization. Actually, 3 times last week. Now that I think about it, and in very different roles, each one of them. And what I can say is that you understand how much the intelligence organizations in this country have changed, how quickly they pivoted to respond to the new threats. So we went from focus on Iran in October 7th, 2023, to building out multiple intelligence organizations that follow everyone in this region. We follow the new factions in Syria. We follow the factions in Iran. We follow the Houthis, and we have pinpoint intel on each one of them. And these are reports that came out from multiple outlets, so I can say this out loud. There's several hundred people in Israeli intelligence that are working on what's going on in Yemen. And
in this attack, it was 200 informing or...
But again, so it's what we understand, and I can say this with a certain level of certainty, let's put it that way, which doesn't mean much.
Okay, I'll say.
On segment 2.
It doesn't mean much at all. is that much of this had to do with electronics, with a deep systemic hacking of the systems in Yemen, which allowed Israel to know the whereabouts of multiple individuals, to intercept the communication on, we're going to meet at this place tomorrow, and then to be prepared to meet them there when it happened. By the way, we know this happened also in Iran during the war.
Exactly.
But we
prepared for Iran for many years.
Yeah.
This was not a surprise. We had intelligence against Iran. In the Houthi, in Yemen, we did not have. But what's cool is that Israel is learning and planning for the future. We just launched another satellite into space, a surveillance satellite that will be able to monitor the Houthis in Yemen and the Iranians, making sure that Iranians do not advance their nuclear program once more, and also to pinpoint terrorist movements and rebuilding of infrastructure in Yemen. And this is just one out of an extra 20 small-scale satellites that Israel is planning to send into space to monitor the Middle East. Pretty big for a small country like Israel, huh?
I'm just crunching the numbers in my head.
Imagine how much does it cost for each satellite?
We're spending. Yeah. We need to, just to say this to our viewers, between us, in the next week, I guess, I want to say this, in faith I'm saying this, in the next week, Yair, I, and Tomer would have visited in person during this war as journalists. I'm not talking about in uniform. Every one of the war arenas that Israel's been fighting in, except for Iran.
Exactly.
In person. Every one of our neighbors, we've been on the ground of those countries, and before we got there, the IDF is present in every one of these places. And to understand the level of intel that is gathered, the level of assets on the ground that are placed to safeguard places in Syria, places in Lebanon, places in Jordan and in Egypt, we're beefing up military operations and the mechanics behind it to an extreme degree. And it's expensive, but it's just necessary with what's going on right now.
Our enemies, and in this time, the Houthis, they were on high alert and try to, not sleeping in the same place.
Yeah, they're very vigilant individuals. And these guys, this is what's interesting, is this isn't the first time we're trying to get these people. We had a moment of divine appointment and a moment where things aligned, because the U.S. tried to do the same thing back in the spring.
They couldn't.
They weren't able to, not because they're lacking in assets. It didn't work. There were several attempts to eliminate high-uppers in their organization, and they failed. Israel tried the same thing back in May and June, and it failed. This time, things clicked. All the intelligence, all the technology that was probably placed into it was able to pull out enough information to nail these guys at the same time.
Yeah. And also, it's very important to share with our viewers that when men and women in Israel turn 18, they join the IDF.
Yeah.
And just recently, I met a few young women that joined the IDF, and they were asked, if you want to be in the intelligence unit, what language do you want to study now so that you can be in charge of that front? If it's Persian, if it's Arabic, and other languages in this region. So Israel is investing a lot from a young age in the intelligence gathering of things, because we understand that intelligence is the key to accurately striking the terrorists without harming the civilians.
Yeah.
And this is something that, since I remember, the IDF has been the focus of this army, to try and target only those that are responsible and minimize the amount of harm to the civilian population.
Yeah, and there's a money question here too, since I was talking about this, where Israel is much more effective in its money, in what we get for it on a military level, than our enemies are. And this might sound counterintuitive to people, because Israel is an unbelievably expensive country. Salaries in this country are very high. In fact, in many sectors in Israel, salaries here are higher than they are in North America, higher than they are in Scandinavian countries. The incomes here are relatively high. The cost of keeping high talent in the military and other organizations is relatively high. And yet our military budget is considerably lower than many of our enemies, including the Iranians.
Yeah.
They've outspent us for decades right now on military spending, and yet we had better intelligence, a better Air Force, a better Navy, a better Special Forces, and...
We're not lying to ourselves.
Yeah, plus we don't
It's
need to
probably the
invest
question
in a military to defend against their own people, unlike the Iranian regime,
That's also true.
that are afraid of their own population as well as Israel.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
other
we
fronts.
have a police force and stuff like that.
Of course, but that's not the military. Yeah.
No, our military doesn't police
The
its own
Islamic
people.
Revolutionary Guard
We
is
did-
in charge of also internal
Yeah.
threats to the regime and external threats, and spreading the ideology of radical Islam.
And anyway,
the Shia
In
sect.
Israel,
to your-
we don't kill half of the people after a demonstration.
No, but and although
Thank God.
thank God for that, but we don't kill anyone after a demonstration.
Yeah, not just that.
We just let
just
them
half.
we just let them block traffic. I've been there. Anyway, to Yair's point is you see the effect of our intelligence organizations, how strong they are, how much they're able to really to suck in information from what's happening in other countries, and these assassinations are evidence of exactly that. People might know this. We reported on this last week, right? Where during the June campaign against Iran, we blew up a bunker that had in it the heads of the Iranian government, but they survived.
Yeah.
Was that in one of our reports, or did I read it somewhere else?
No, it's
We reported on it, right? And so we've done this several times. Again, when you're hitting a bunker that's 300 feet underground, 200 feet underground, you don't really know what the outcome is going to be.
Exactly.
And we're not dropping tactical nukes on these countries. We're dropping small missiles from planes. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it just
Small.
knocks out the blast doors. Yeah.
Smallish.
Yeah.
Smallish, yeah.
Smallish.
Smallish compared to the fact that they're in a bunker, 100 meters underground, 50 meters underground. Anyway, so intelligence, highly, highly effective. And I want to sort of make a side note here, which is we talked about the negative effects of the Iranians and the Houthis on this region's economy. But there's one anomaly that's taking place in this region that has to do with finances every single year. And that anomaly is Israel. We're a country where people keep saying we're waiting for the economy to tank. We're waiting for the stock market to crash. We're waiting for people to divest their investments in Israel. And then we look at our pension portfolios, you look at what's happening in the stock market, it's just going up and up and up and up and up. And this isn't a setup. Literally at dinner last night, I was having dinner with an American businessman friend, and his comment was, many people want to invest in Israel and they don't know how. Well, we have the way for them to do that. Today's partner is wisemoneyisrael.com. These are not people we found on the internet. These are people I know personally and have known for many, many years. And they do a very, very honest and meticulous job of helping people invest in Israel. They do this through a U.S. entity. They have an Israeli entity. Everything is accurate. They understand the taxation. They understand the process. And if you look at the instability that we're living in, at the axis of evil and everything that's going on, there's one economy that supernaturally continues to chug along again and again and again. It's the Israeli economy. And now people have an opportunity. Can we put that on the screen, the graphic? wisemoneyisrael.com/TBN. I'll say that again. It's wisemoneyisrael.com/TBN. You can do this, and it's a safe and professional way to invest into Israel. There's always a risk in investment, but as far as investment goes, this is both guaranteed by God in the Bible and by history.
I would align my money with God's plans and promises for the future of Israel.
Any day of the week.
Definitely.
Anyway.
And also that's another way that you can help us create more content from Israel by going to wisemoneyisrael.com/TBN because they are partnering with us.
I think we nailed that.
Okay, Abu Obeida. I hate this guy. I hated him for a long time because he was the spokesperson for Hamas. He was in charge of the psychological propaganda of the terrorist organization. He was publishing videos of the hostages that are digging their own graves underneath the Gaza Strip. And he was the face of this terrorist organization. He was employing more than 1,500 personnel in Gaza to film the terrorist attacks against the IDF troops, the attacks that were committed against the Israeli civilians. He was in charge of all the footage that Hamas was filming on October 7th. And after so many years, the IDF was able to pinpoint his location and terminate him. And psychological warfare may seem like something light and not so serious, but this is what is stopping our tanks, our troops, our military, our government from advancing to rescue our hostages at these days. Right now, the whole world is calling on Israel to stop the fighting without bringing our hostages back, without ending this war, and with leaving a terrorist organization in charge of the Gaza Strip, a terrorist organization that vows that the day after they will carry more attacks against Israel. And that's the power of lies and of a successful propaganda campaign that this man was in charge of.
Are you, I don't want to name the Telegram channel. Do you follow the Hamas-related Telegram channel that talks about what's happening? Yeah. So the level, I just don't want to credit what they're doing, they're a deceptive organization. These people spread lies in the most diabolical nature. Someone in our team, it was Alona actually, was sending me the other day where several New York-based journalists, they went back and they picked the 12 highest profile visual stories that came out of Gaza in the last 3 or 4 months. Stories of starvation and children that were allegedly murdered by Israel or bombed by Israel, etc. And it was 12 out of 12 strikes. Every single one of the 12 stories that were the highlights of this is what's happening in Gaza. Starvation, children being injured, children being separated from their families. Every one of these stories was proven to be a lie. And this was independent journalism. It had nothing to do with Israel. They weren't not Jewish and not pro-Israeli. And this journalist comes out and says, she says, you're not going to believe the level of attacks that I've been experiencing because of this, of people that I know writing me and saying that I'm lying. It's like, all I did is literally Google the names of these people in Arabic, and you can find in the official publications by Hamas in Arabic the true story, which is they had MS, they had another degenerative disease, they had unrelated injuries to the war against Israel, and the Hamas spins this tale. And then the other half of that is, this Abu Ubaidah, he's not a PR person. He's a propaganda and deception minister. And what they do is they spread intentional lies with the goal of ending lives. It's not to twist opinions. It's not to make a political point. They want people to die because of the lies that they're spreading. Yeah. And that's an important distinction to be made.
No, exactly. So finally, the IDF was able to target him together with another Hamas leader inside the area of Gaza City. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tomer.
No, you're right.
Okay. And with a precise strike, he was confirmed to be terminated. And hopefully now Hamas will have a harder time to spread those lies. Well, let's break some of those lies, Mati. We've been inside Gaza. We saw the amounts of food that is being sent through Israel, by the way, not through Egypt. May I remind all of you, Gaza has 2 countries bordering with it. On one side is Israel. On the other side is Egypt. Egypt, when this war started, closed the borders and very, very fast stopped all entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza from the Sinai Peninsula, which is part of Egypt. Israel continued to let humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip for the most parts of this war, including up to 300 trucks every day now.
Oh, more.
That's just through the border crossings. You have airdrops, you have the GHF that are delivering food.
No, because there's a backlog of trucks that are sitting at the border.
They have been waited.
Because you see, are you on the...
I know what you mean. I'm not.
The Kogat mailing list? No. They put the numbers out every day because it'll be like there's 300 trucks that went in today, but we delivered goods from 550 trucks. And the discrepancy is the fact that there's entire lots like in Kerem Shalom that are sitting and waiting to be picked up. And every couple days, the UN is willing to do its job, which is distribute food to the people of Gaza. And they can pick up a lot more than what was brought in that day because it's sitting there waiting for distribution. Yeah. So it's high numbers of aid that are brought in. By the way, just to set the record straight, much more than is needed for safe life for the people in Gaza on an average throughout the entirety of this war.
Yeah, so what? So an amount of calories that a person needs, an adult, to survive on and not to be starving is around 2,200 calories per day, right? And Israel has been bringing food that amounts to almost double this amount into the Gaza Strip since 2024 in the middle of that year. That's the amount.
Here's the problem with averages, though. Here's the big problem. There are pictures of Hamas people that have been gaining weight month on month throughout this war. And then there are people that are suffering from a lack of availability of food, children, women, weaker families. And the reason is because Hamas is creating an intentional shortage of food inside the Gaza Strip by withholding food intentionally.
More than that.
It has multiple agendas here. One is to create an image of famine in the Gaza Strip. Second is to sell the food at high prices to the population of Gaza, because if they cannot find sugar, then they will pay high amounts to get the sugar from the Hamas store.
Can you explain how this guy that we just eliminated connected to the idea that most of Europe seeing starving kids in Gaza? And how this mechanism of Hamas that we talk about this a week after week after week of making the image of Israel as a bad guy that's starving and taking, how this guy planned that when we talk about an arch terrorist.
Are there journalists in Gaza?
That's a great question.
Are there journalists in Gaza? That's the question.
From what I know, in the beginning of the war, there were around 3,000 journalists, Gazan journalists in the Gaza Strip written. After October 7, we're talking about 2,000 of them being found out as Hamas operatives that getting paid by Hamas, and they have other
including journalists that work for Al Jazeera and main news channels.
Let's be dugre, as we say, or let's talk directly. There isn't a single image that comes out of the Gaza Strip that doesn't go through the hands of Hamas. It doesn't happen. Unless it's the IDF, unless it's the GHF, there aren't images that come out of the Gaza Strip that don't...
Even on phones, TikToks.
That are not sanctioned and promoted by Hamas one way or another. You want evidence for this? People that have spoken out openly on social media against Hamas were publicly executed throughout the war, time and time again. So you can say, yes, there was an image. It was very short-lived. There aren't stills images. These are people that work for Hamas, on the payroll of Hamas, and they carefully shape the narrative of images that comes out of the Gaza Strip. You'll only ever see images of destruction of the Gaza Strip. You'll only ever see images of the successes they'll have against the IDF. You never see a day in the life of Gaza. You never see that. And every once in a while, people are able to sort of fish through social media and say, look, there's like food channels, cooking channels.
They just opened a new cafe, a Nutella cafe in Gaza.
In Gaza City. Gaza City, that right now Hamas is promoting that Gaza City is under a siege by the IDF and the starvation in the Gaza City is starting.
But they are importing iPhones and food and also meat now into this Gaza Strip. And you can see some on Palestinian social media networks of the amounts of food that there is, shops that are selling candies and food that are being sold on the markets in Gaza City. So there is an image that is being projected to the Western world of starvation, of suffering, of hardship. And then there is another image that is being shown internally to the Palestinian people of Gaza of strength, of look, we are persevering despite the IDF carrying out these attacks against us, and we should hold on for as long as possible because the situation is not so bad. So there's two images that are serving the same purpose of keeping Hamas in power over the heads of the Gazan population.
Yes, absolutely. And so just to connect the dots for everyone who's watching, because we've gone a long time here.
Like this war.
We removed an arch terrorist that is personally responsible for the death and suffering of people in the Gaza Strip. Personally responsible for spreading lies that result in waves of anti-Semitic attacks, in a false narrative and a false understanding of what's... Is that you, Yair?
I guess so. Okay.
No, don't worry about it. It'll go away. Anyway, so Yair, his ringtone apparently is the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah, by the way, I wanted to get married with this song. There's a guest here that a friend of them was in my wedding. So that was my choice to walk down the aisle. But my wife said, no way. I'm not marrying you if you put on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air as we walk down the aisle. But still, I have this song with me as my ringtone.
Yes. By the way, the 1990s called They want their ringtone back. Anyway, so just to wrap this up, the thoughts we're having on this topic. So again, propaganda minister for Hamas. We were talking about this, Tomer and I, before we started. He is the Joseph Goebbels of the Hamas.
Definitely.
A person who's responsible to intentionally spread lies, to create an image of hatred and dehumanization of the enemies of the Hamas movement, to spread complete falsehoods about what's really happening in there, and in a very direct way. This isn't some like roundabout effect over time. In a very direct way, to try and shape policy of other countries into an anti-people of Gaza policy and anti-Israel policy. At the same time, hide the true nature of the war that's taking place in the Gaza Strip. So this person is an enemy, first and foremost, of the people of Gaza. Secondly, of the people of Israel. And thirdly, of people that care about truth and human suffering around the world. And Hamas is none of those. They don't care about the suffering of anyone. They take joy in the suffering of their own people, and definitely the people of Israel.
Yeah.
And it's important to note that.
Yeah, exactly. So why is this good? Why is this major achievement for the IDF to eliminate the Houthis' leadership in Yemen and Abu Ubaidah in the Gaza Strip? Is this a sign that we are closing in on this terrorist regime? Because it always seems like every day we are targeting and assassinating another terrorist leader, but then another one is popping out. Is there a way to end this regime by targeting the leaders?
Here, I'll ask a different question related to this week's news.
Matti today wants to ask questions in regards to questions.
Okay.
It's a new thing.
It's a very Jewish thing. It's a very Jewish thing. Do you think let's zoom out of the Middle East and let's go to Asia, North Korea? Do you think you could call up Pyongyang and say, Mr. Kim, we are planning to go to war against you because we're unhappy with your government, and we're going to impose sanctions on you. Will you kindly go to elections and replace yourself in the ballots? Not going to happen.
Yeah.
That event is never happening. No dictatorship replaces itself willfully. It only is done through violent coups or external pressures or internal pressures. And definitely a terrorist organization such as Hamas or the Houthis, they don't one day wake up and say, we're really sorry about like our path of violence and terrorism. Israel, please forgive us for these terrible things. That doesn't happen. All they do is create more death and more destruction. And there is no negotiating with these people if we've learned anything from these last 20-something months of war. That doesn't happen. So if your options are not, there is no negotiating with them. There's no convincing them to change their path. The only route you have left is or give up and succumb to what they're trying to do, or weaken them and eliminate them. And we're choosing the weaken and eliminate versus giving in to them.
Yeah. Well, now on the table, well, I don't know if it's really on the table, but it seems like, according to all the reports, that there is a partial deal to release some of the hostages on the table in exchange for a 60-day ceasefire. Okay. Again, part of the hostages, only half of the living ones, for a 60-day ceasefire. Or what looks like to be the option that the Israeli government is pushing for, a conquest to capture Gaza City. Do you think that there is really a deal on the table, or Hamas is like bluffing again?
Both. That's the problem. Hamas is a dishonest organization. They're terrorists. They're dishonest people. They openly have it in their charter. Their point is destruction. So and at the same time, they're creatures of survival. So whatever extends their grip over the Gaza Strip, they continue. Whatever allows them to hold on to hostages for longer, they'll pursue that path. Whatever they can use to sort of like weasel their way out of succumbing into external American pressure or Egyptian or Qatari or Israeli pressure, they're going to take that route. They don't care for the people of Gaza. They've proven that time and time again. They don't care they have no moral problems killing every last of the Israeli hostages. They've proven that time and time again. And they have no problem of signing a ceasefire and 2 weeks later going back to war. And they've done that multiple times in the last 2 years. Can you actually negotiate with Hamas in good favor? Absolutely not. Which is why Trump publicly said, which is both funny and serious at the same time, he said, hey, Israel, first get the hostages back, then eliminate all Hamas. Yeah. And Hamas says, we
heard that.
We heard you. No, it's okay. But they said, we heard you. What are you talking about? But that's literally the only thing you can do. All you can do is do everything in your power to get back every last hostage,
as possible,
and then do whatever you have in your power to remove Hamas from the government of the Gaza Strip. And my hope is that people around the world get tired of this organization. They get tired of what they've been doing to this region. They get tired of the never-ending war. And I think we saw about 2 weeks ago sort of the beginning of that, where you saw Qatari and Egyptian pressure on Hamas, essentially smacking them on the back of the head.
We saw it only in the Arab moderate countries against Hamas, but when you look at Western countries, we see the opposite. We see people getting tired of so-called Israel's war against Hamas in the Gaza Strip, calling on Israel to stop the war, implying sanctions against Israel, and stating that they will recognize a Palestinian state in the next United Nations Assembly.
Yes.
That is coming up. And, I mean...
That's scary.
So it's weird that the countries that are siding with Israel in this situation are the Arab countries, while the West is siding with a terrorist organization.
Well, the closer you are to terrorism, the higher the price you pay for what you say is.
Don't forget that the Muslim Brotherhood is banned from I don't know.
From most Arab countries.
Yeah, in Saudi, in Egypt. Most of Arab countries are not agreeing with what
not agreeing is an understatement.
No, not just
Egypt.
agreeing.
Egypt has gone to war several times to remove the
They brought 45,000 soldiers to the border with Gaza just now to make sure that no Palestinians spill into the Sinai Peninsula.
Because they don't want this ideology inside their countries.
Yes.
They don't want this kind of Islam inside their countries. They bending that, and somehow
Because they know what it means.
European
but
countries accepting that the radicalization of Islam inside the countries, while the Middle East is trying to take this cancer out for many years.
But I think it's a question of, it's not whether or not, or either or. It's a question of they're both. The French both fear the radical Muslims and fear the Muslim population in their country and lack the tools to deal with it. And at the same time, they're also anti-Semitic in many elements of society. It doesn't
Going
have
by history.
Yeah, they're not exclusive. You can be both at the same time. You can be anti-Semitic and anti-Israel and also fear the effects of Islam in your own country.
But very important to mention is that all the terrorist organizations around the world are looking at Hamas and how Israel is dealing with them right now. And if Hamas will emerge victorious from this war against Israel, this is a signal to all the terrorist regimes around the world that terrorism pays off, that the West is giving prizes to terrorists who murdered and kidnapped civilians. And this is the situation now. And if Israel will not destroy this terrorist organization completely, there will be more terrorism that will rise up around the world just by looking at the response of Israel and the West against this organization in Gaza.
Yeah, but I'd say in the overall picture, it's been clear for many, many years that the West doesn't know how to deal with these kind of radical movements. They lack the tools both on a spiritual, psychological, and national level of really dealing with this kind of mindset. They just don't know how to do it long term. There's also a deep element of hypocrisy in the way they deal with life, in which they point a finger towards Israel, and in that they're trying to cancel out and hide the things that they've done previously. The French were horrific colonizers, and we're talking in my lifetime. We're not talking 150 years ago. Horrific colonizers of countries in Northern Africa, in abusing the people, the land, and the economy of those countries. The British have, a marred record, if ever there was one, on this topic, as do other countries. So there's always an internal conversation happening there where they're trying to divert the blame towards what's happening in Israel. And the last thing is Israel has always been on the right side of history. And because we stick with God's plan for this country, and as long as we continue to do that, the nations can, as the Bible says, they can make a loud sound and they can make a noise, but in the end, God shows his faithfulness through what happens in this land time and time again. And my hope, my prayer is that it evokes a honest conversation about what's good and bad around the world, and that we promote a conversation that is focused on removing suffering from innocent people around the world, not whether or right. I'm fine with people saying we don't like Israel. Don't like us. We don't care. But care about the innocent in the world.
Exactly.
That's fine.
Yeah. Listen, Mati, I like that. And I like the fact that the world is looking at Israel now. Because when you look at Israel, it's impossible not to see God's hand and God's miracles and God's faithfulness to the Jewish people for thousands of generations. So I think that on the positive note of all these wars and all this negative media publication, this is a witness on a national, worldwide level that God is still performing biblical level miracles today on a daily basis, if it's by saving soldiers in the field, if it's by rescuing some of the hostages, if it's by just being here as a nation after we were attacked by 7 different nations around the world. It's living proof that we serve a faithful and an amazing God. And guys, if you need any encouragement, just go to TBN Israel on YouTube channel or any other news channel. Look at what God is doing in Israel and be encouraged. And I think this is all the time that we have for today, Mati, correct?
I think we've covered a lot of ground.
It was very, very fun. Thank you, Tomer. Thank you guys for joining us all the way from wherever you are around the world. I think it was, I forgot now, Germany. Okay, thank you so much. And guys, thank you for joining us. Keep praying. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and never miss another episode of TBN Israel, the podcast.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.